My name's Annie Puffett. I am the Director of Career Development here at Upper Iowa University. And so excited to be doing another edition of our Alumni Speaker Series. Tonight, we are joined by Jenna Klos, Jenna Hermsen Klos, for those of you who remember her when she was back here. She is a 2015 graduate from the Fayette campus who majored in exercise and sports studies with a psychology minor. So welcome, Jenna, to the next edition of the Alumni Speaker Series. I know that there are several things that you want to talk about tonight, but first, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. So a little bit about myself. I live up near the La Crosse, Wisconsin area, with my husband, Nick, and our my stepson, Chase, and our silver lab, Luna. I graduated from Upper Iowa in December of 2015, like you said. Played softball there for 2 years and then actually played volleyball there for 3 years after that. Met some really awesome people that I still stay in touch with today. And right now I work as an occupational therapist. So I'm in the school setting, and then I also have my own private practice too. Love to do anything outdoors and exploring new places, whether that's locally or throughout the United States. So
Awesome. Thank you. What made you choose Upper Iowa? I know you talked about athletics that you were a part of, but was that the sole reason that kind of ventured you towards this direction, or what brought you to Upper Iowa University?
yeah, I mean, obviously athletics was a big part of coming there. The athletics in itself is really cool just because, each team supports one another. But I still remember my official visit on campus, and I felt right at home when I got there. Everyone was super friendly. It was a very comfortable feeling, which is really hard to come by, I feel like, on college campuses. I really loved the idea of the smaller class sizes and the shorter 8-week classes. Obviously, when I got there, still loved it. I think it's one of the best things about Upper Iowa. And, being with that comfortable feeling, I thought it was also really great to have like the professors there and getting to know them on a personal level. And, they knew if you were in sports and your travel schedule, and they were super understanding. And just to have that close relationship with them and be able to go to them for questions. And then for me, Upper Iowa is really close to where I grew up in Northeast Iowa. So that was also an added bonus too.
For sure. You were very involved at UIU. Can you talk about some of the ways that you were involved, and along with the lessons that you learned that helped in your career?
Yeah. Well, obviously, like as a student athlete with softball and volleyball, I feel like being an athlete always teaches me some really good life lessons. I would say the biggest one is time management. Trying to juggle classwork and practices and being on the road and all of those things. Some other things I were involved in was Greek life. So I was in KZT. I was part of FCA, so Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I was an athlete peer educator. And then while I was there, I think it was my senior year, I started Dance Marathon when I was there. All of which were really, really great experiences and gave me a chance to get to know people who weren't on my athletic teams. And then while I was there, I feel like when I thought about it, I was like, what did I have time for? I was also a student ambassador, so I gave tours of the campus, which I really enjoyed. I also did phone-a-thon. I worked at the bookstore. And, since all those were jobs, I feel like it taught me about working for someone else and having my priorities in line to be able to be an athlete and still be able to do all of those extra things too. I remember one thing about being a student ambassador actually was telling kids, I guess, high school kids, like college is what you make of it, no matter where you're at, whether you're in a big city or small town Iowa. And it's really cool that Upper Iowa has all of these opportunities to get involved and really lets you make the experience that you want it to be. And I would say we volunteered with different things, like with athletics and just being in all of those organizations. And so I got to work with younger kids, like with camps and everything. So it helped introduce me to like being involved in something other than like the main thing that I'm in. So like, now I have my job And so now I'm able to get involved in whatever way I can outside of my job too. So lots of lessons learned.
Awesome. Thank you. After Upper Iowa, you attended grad school at St. Louis University. Can you talk about your grad school experience and how Upper Iowa prepared you for that?
Yeah. Well, going from Fayette, Iowa to St. Louis is, even St. Louis is a smaller city, but still a big difference. So that was a big shift for me. But I will say when I went to Upper Iowa, I had the best advisor there is. I had Carla Gavin as my advisor. And we had a lot of really great in-depth conversations about just like what I wanted to have my future look like and the steps to take to get there. As soon as we talked about, as soon as I decided that I wanted to go for occupational therapy, she helped me make sure I had all my ducks in a row and I had all of the classes needed. I think that's where that psychology minor actually came in. So, I could apply, but also be able to get interviews and hopefully get into grad school. Part of my major was having an internship, quote unquote. And I chose to do mine at the hospital in West Union with an occupational therapist there. So I got to see her work with adults, kids, in the hospital, patients, and then outpatient people who came to her. So I was also able to double dip and get observation hours with an OT. I think when I went to apply for grad school, I think they wanted like a minimum of 20 to 30 hours of observation. And solely through that internship, I was able to get over 200 hours. So I think that helped me stand out a little bit. I also worked at a summer camp down in North Carolina with kids with autism one summer when I was in college too. So I think all of the things that I was involved in, the athletics, those observation hours too, I think all of that helped me stand out on my applications. And then when I went to grad school too, I would also say a really cool thing about Upper Iowa is obviously like everyone seems to know everybody else. And so I knew people that had gone on to grad school ahead of me in whatever healthcare professions it would have been. So I was able to ask them questions, which then helped me prepare for my own interviews too. So it was good. It was awesome.
You mentioned internships and doing your internship in West Union. What would you give as advice and encouragement for other students that not necessarily in the same field that you're in, but just overall experience or advice on the importance of internships and what they can utilize that for?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, I think I had before my internship, I had shadowed an OT like for a day or two here and there. So I had shadowed other OTs too. So I knew I still wanted to go into that. I would say 200 hours of an internship will like very much tell you like, yes, I still want to go into this, or like maybe I should find something else. So I think just that exposure piece is really big, to know like this is maybe the field that I'm going into. So yeah, I would highly recommend and again, I didn't get paid for that internship. And so I think also that volunteerism is also big too. So.
Awesome. You're currently a school-based occupational therapist, but you also have your own private practice. Can you talk about your decision to open your own private practice and what drove you in wanting to do that?
Yeah, I guess so. When I went to grad school, I knew that I wanted to work in pediatrics. All along, that never really changed. When I got out of grad school, I worked in outpatient pediatrics for a few years. And then when I moved up to the La Crosse area, I've been in school-based ever since. But I attended our national OT conference like right out of grad school. And it was there that I overheard someone talking about nature-based occupational therapy, and it like really sparked my interest. It was something I never really heard of, so I dug a little bit deeper into it, and have really just loved the fact that like I can take my job and I can use the outdoors and all of the benefits that it has, and combine them. And I would say I think I got to a point earlier this year that I was just like tired of it like being a dream. Ever since that conference, I'm like, this is something I want to do. And so thankfully I have some really good people in my life and good support system who helped make that happen. But it was definitely getting out of my comfort zone in order to do so, because I went to school for science. I went to school for occupational therapy. And so a lot of the business things, they're super uncomfortable for me. And so I'm just not used to that, and I don't have that background. So I've done some extra learning and plan on continue to learning with that too. It's not all the glitz and glam, running your own business. So I'm the only person, I'm the OT in it, but I also do my website and run social media. But it is nice being a school-based OT also, because I have that school schedule. And so I'm able to see clients through my own practice on the side, after school, and sometimes on the weekends, and then during the summer as well. But yeah, it's been really nice to make it how I want it, and yeah, do what I want to with it.
What advice would you have for individuals who are going into OT or any kind of field that might want to have their own business someday, be an entrepreneur, but aren't really quite sure what they want to do? Are there things that you would encourage them to do while they are going to Upper Iowa, classes to get involved in, areas to get involved in, that might help them with maybe that business side of things going forward?
Yeah,
You wish you would have taken advantage.
So the funny thing is I think when I originally went to Upper Iowa, I had my mindset on being a physical therapist, actually. And high school me also wanted to own my own practice. So like, it's funny looking back at it now. I initially started with, I think it was like a business or management minor, but then switched it. So I had those prerequisites for grad school. And looking back, I probably should have taken maybe a couple more business classes during that time, but all good. There are a lot of resources out there. I think the internet's a really cool thing to be able to utilize, but there's also people, like I'm lucky enough to have people who own their own businesses in my life that I've been able to pick their brains about a lot of things, and like, what resources do you use, that kind of thing. So, which is really good.
Having that support system will be very beneficial.
Absolutely.
What does a typical day look like for you?
If there is such a thing.
Great.
I try to get up. I'm a morning person, so I try to get up between like 5 and 5:30. We usually take our dog for a walk in the morning. I just like to have that me time to kind of get set for the day. Go through anything that I need to prepare for. Once I get to work at school, I see kids throughout the day. I feel like once I'm there, I kind of hit the ground running. So I'm either seeing kids for their minutes, or I'm collaborating with teachers, or trying to keep up with paperwork, or attending a meeting of some sort. It's really cool because there's a lot of really awesome educators out there, and so it's been really fun to be able to collaborate with them, just because school-based OT is so different than like outpatient OT and like what I do on the side. So it's all very based on the school setting. So it's been fun to work with teachers that way. After school, I will either see a client or two in my own practice. And then if I don't have a client that day, then I usually try to either run errands or try to come home and work on the business side of things. Try to keep my website up to date, stay on top of social media, that kind of thing. And then in the spring, I'm also an adjunct professor at UW La Crosse here. So I help with their pediatrics lab. So I get to work with students that are in the OT program here, and help guide them through some of their like mock treatment sessions, which is really fun too. So it's fun. It's a fun balance. It keeps me busy.
What are some of the main things that you do being a school-based OT as opposed to being private practice OT? Like, what are some of the differences that you see in that private practice side versus being in the school side, and kind of some of the activities that you have to do that way?
Yeah, good question. I would say a lot of what I do in the school setting is very much like self-regulation based. Hopefully getting kids regulated in order to even like attend to what they're doing. I do a lot of like fine motor skills, visual motor skills, but also try to like work with the teachers. So like I'm not the only one doing it. So when those kids see me, if it's like once a week or once every couple weeks, it's not the only time that they're working on those skills.
Mhm.
And then versus in the private practice setting, it could be a variety of things. All of those skills, those self-regulation, fine motor, visual motor, are still there. But it's very much dependent on the kid's home life versus the kid's school life. So yeah, it just kind of depends. So, and with the private practice, I obviously work a lot with the parents and, try to give them ideas to work on at home, in order to build the kids' skills and work on their development too. So
Making connections and building relationships is so important in helping advance in any field. What would you say is your biggest piece of advice for building relationships?
yeah, it's very important. I would say when you're getting to know other people, try to stay in touch with them after meeting them, whether that's social media, whether that's following up with them over an email, that kind of thing. And I would say a big thing for me is like really trying to get to know who is around me especially on a daily or regular basis, and who I work with. And just know that like work life isn't the only life they have. So I like to ask questions about what's going on in their personal life too. I think it's really important to realize that we're all humans, and we all like this small snippet that I see people is like, just that. For example, like a client that I might see for an hour or two each week, that's a small part of their entire week. So I like to ask questions on like what else is going on in their life, and things that they've been doing and working on. So I'm looking at the whole person and not just like the child during that session. And then I would also say with building relationships, I think this goes back to getting involved at Upper Iowa. Through those organizations and everything, I was able to meet so many people from so many like different backgrounds and came from different parts of the United States and the world. And I think that's important now, just being able to like go to an event or something like by myself, and being able to talk to people, or going somewhere that's not all necessarily comfortable, but being able to go up and strike a conversation up with people. I feel like there's been a lot of times where I've said like it really is all about who you know. And so building those networks and those relationships is really helpful.
Awesome. Career readiness is an important topic in career services and higher education in general, in terms of hiring students after they complete their degree. What competencies do you feel are important in helping anyone excel in their career, and why?
Yeah, I would say some that stand out to me, two in particular, would be the teamwork and the communication. I feel like no matter what field you're in, and what you do for your line of work, just being able to work with other people and being able to effectively communicate is huge. And then I would also say technology is really a neat thing to have and a good skill set to have, just because it's 2023 and there are so many things that you can do with technology, and it can be very beneficial. And again, no matter what field you're in, it can always be beneficial. So I would say those three are the ones that stand out to me the most, but obviously they're all very important.
How would you encourage others to improve those skills and competencies?
I would say, with the teamwork and communication, find a way to get involved, find a way to meet new people. I feel like I learn the most from people who come from different backgrounds, or didn't grow up the way I grew up. And then I would also say, well, with technology too, just get out of your comfort zone, and find one thing that you can do this week or this month, and set a goal and go after it. Try to start small and go from there. I think would be some advice that I would suggest.
Okay, awesome. Are there any final pieces of advice that you would give to UIU students, alums, the university community, anybody listening with us this evening?
I would say, you know, you might not know it at the time that it's happening, but you just never know how something can serve you. So even in the moment, if you think like, oh, why am I doing this? Just know that there's always a purpose, and you know, you might not ever know what that purpose is, but it might help you along the road somewhere else. I would say find a way to get involved in, you know, however you can. Being from athletics, I have found ways to get involved with athletics still, through coaching, through volunteering. Find a way to get out of your comfort zone and just continue to grow as a person, both personally, professionally. You know, the saying, great things never came from comfort zones. So I feel like, yeah, just finding ways to do that.
All right. Well, that is all that we have for this evening with Jenna while we wrap things up tonight. Jenna, I'd like to thank you again for hopping on to the Alumni Speaker Series with us this evening and telling us a little bit about your OT story and kind of where Upper Iowa played a role in that and how that helped you. Thank you to those that are watching this evening, and I encourage you to tune in next semester when we have a new group of alums set up to connect with us next year. So have a great evening and thanks so much.
Thank you.